Hi
Hi
everyone!
everyone.
Welcome to another episode of Can We Discuss with Yara and Petra, where I get to hang out with my best friend and discuss life's things, right? I don't know what else to call it.
Stuff that we've discussed previously, stuff that we would just like to share our opinion on or a take on.
Yeah, stuff that we think, we don't have it all figured out for shit, but
Obviously.
just stuff that we think is interesting, that we think can resonate with people. Um, so with that being said, Yarush, what are we discussing today?
So today's episode is about society and the pressure that it puts on relationships. We are going to be touching upon this topic from an Arab society perspective. Disclaimer, this is all stuff that either we've experienced or people around us have experienced or we've heard of, right? That we're going to be discussing today.
Yes, mazboot. It's things that we've experienced, our friends have talked about,
Yes. Society
colleagues
just talks about
even.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So these are all just little disclaimers before, because now you need a disclaimer before everything in life.
Yeah. So Petra, let's jump right into it. Tell me, were we allowed
Well,
to date?
we were, in fact, allowed to date. With a lot of people, I don't think we're allowed to date, that we know, Hamjad. Like, I think I have it's funny because me and you have very different experiences when it comes to this. We took completely different routes when it comes to relationships and growing up. Um, it's funny because I think up until a certain age, even though both our parents were never like against us dating, but I think I didn't feel appropriate until like my senior year to full out. My mom obviously always knew who I was dating because she would assume it. We wouldn't, it would just go with like unspoken. Um, but eventually, in my senior year, my boyfriend back then, I think that was the first time that I had disclosed, like full on, went to mom, sat her down, started crying for some weird ass reason, and told her, like, you know what, like me and this guy are dating, it's official. She goes, okay, like, why are you so nervous about talking to me about this? Like, calm down. But I don't think all of our friends had the same experiences with their parents,
Because
right?
not everybody has the same relationship with their parents. And
Very
my parents, both of them, are of the mindset of let them hear things from us first, and then learn these things from their friends.
yeah.
With a lot of things, not everything, of course, but with a lot of things. My parents were like, even if we don't agree with this stuff, even if we think it's a bit taboo or not accepted by society, we're going to talk about it with you just for you to
Yeah,
be aware. We're not saying
yeah,
it's okay because, and
yeah,
we're going to come to that, but we're not saying it's okay, but we're good if you hear it from us first. And you can make
yeah,
your own choices. We know we've raised you to be able to make your own decisions when it comes to these things. But I think in our society, when it comes to relationships specifically, if we're talking about in general, Arab parents, regardless of your religion or the family's religion, Arab parents are not very open to their kids dating starting at a younger age. I know in the
yeah,
States, a lot of our friends, their parents were extremely open. You can start dating at the age of 12 and they would be like all
yeah,
for it, right? They would really support you. In the Middle East or in the Arab culture in general, regardless of where you live, that's not the norm, right?
yeah,
Some parents are more flexible, they're less strict when it comes to these things. بس مش كل العالم have the privilege of having that. I don't know if it's a privilege, but you know what I mean.
yeah,
And I think it just, a lot of the parents say when you're a bit older, when you know who you are as a person, only then you can start dating. And then you have other parents who say you're not allowed to date. If you want to be with a person, you gotta get engaged.
oh yeah,
And a lot of our friends, it was the case with a lot of people that we know as well, right? They would get engaged simply because it needed to be official in society's eyes for them to be able to go have dinner together or take a walk together. And then they would either end up like just breaking off the engagement or maybe getting married early on and not being extremely happy in their relationship, which can lead to a lot of problems, psychological issues, or divorce. And it's so sad to say, but yes,
Like
divorce.
trauma.
Yeah.
No, for sure. I think it's for us, we were lucky that our parents wanted us to have like our own experiences, come up with our own conclusions, and they weren't too caught up. I don't think like mom and dad were never like caught up with societal norms or making sure that they're putting on this front for society. But we have a lot of our friends who did, have parents who did care about, what other people think and, how other people are perceiving you. And not to say that that's not important. Of course, you have to present yourself in a certain way in society. But I think it's different when it comes to like your own personal experiences. Like no one's saying go out there and be crazy. But if that's the path that's going to get you to where you need to get to in life and finding the right person specifically, I think it's important to be able to like self-discover and like figure out what you like,
Yeah.
who's gonna be compatible with your life. And it's funny because it's such a dilemma between like they want you to get married and they want you to find your person and they want that to happen quick, but at the same time they have all of these reservations on like, yeah, but don't go out on multiple dates. Like make sure you know what I mean? And no,
Don't put
you're
yourself
confused.
too out there.
Yeah, don't be too available, but make sure that you're finding a guy, and it's just like, or a girl, and it's just like, I don't understand what you want me to do at this stage. No,
No, it's
I'm a
also,
bit confused.
yeah, and it's also all about like if you're with this person for a couple of years, خلص, it's about time that you guys make things serious. And
Um,
بس ما صاركم زمان تعرفوا بعض, so it's like it doesn't go, it's not always something that's, you have to find the right
yeah,
balance. And I think it's a lot of the times a lot of people that we know just end up being like, okay, this is just too much pressure. I'm not going to listen to any of
yeah,
it. And you always say you're not going to listen to the pressure around you. And a lot of the times I find the pressure not only comes from your parents, but from your friends as well, right?
good.
I
And
don't know.
even if it's your friends aren't trying,
Yes.
like it's funny. We were literally at dinner the other day, and Jason, my husband, a couple of our friends recently got engaged, and he was like, "Oh, about time," in a joking way. Like anyone who knows Jace, he's not like that. And I was like, "Excuse me, like it took you 4 years or 3.5 years to propose, so it's like, what are you talking
Okay.
about?" But I think it's funny because even like in a joking way or whatever, like especially if it's a couple who has the same friends group, now all of a sudden everyone feels like entitled to your timeline and entitled to contribute to say, hey, like you've been together for 2 years, or I and no, 2 years is nothing. Like how can you know someone for 2 years? Like there's no way you can possibly go through the challenges that you need to go through and get through for you to be able to make a decision of like, this is my life partner or not. And I talk about this a lot with a lot of my friends now who we're all in our 30s, where it's like now they feel like even if they're in the wrong relationship and they see they're in the wrong relationship, they're like, yeah, but do I really want to start over at this point?
Right.
And I'm just like, it's worth starting over now than starting over in 10 years when all of this stuff that you're pushing back like catches up to you.
Yeah. I think it's just very sad that our generation or young people, even younger than us, obviously, do feel that pressure. Whether it's from their friends, whether it's from just society in general, maybe it's their parents, maybe it's not even their parents, right? Maybe it's just their relatives that are talking about it. But
Yeah.
I know a lot of people that just feel انه اوكي صار عمري 30 سنة، إذا بدي أتعرف على حدا وبدي أتجوز تجيب أولاد، اوكي يعني لازم أكون معرف عليه من سنتين. You know what I mean? And I feel that puts a lot of pressure on girls more so than guys,
Yeah.
because girls feel like they have a biological clock, which of course I'm not going
It's
to argue
science.
there. It's
Can't
science,
deny.
exactly.
Yeah.
There, right? It's science. But I think in our society, it hasn't always been open about talking about these things or talking about the different options that you can have
Oh
related
yeah.
to these different topics. And only now, only in very, very recent years, like I want to say the past couple of years, have people started talking about all of these things that come with relationships and that come with the new societal norms of maybe not getting married at the age of 25 when you don't even know
Yeah.
who you are as a human being, right?
Yeah.
So I think it's having knowledge or having accessibility to this knowledge and to the different options, I
Yeah.
feel now changes the way that we look at society or the way that society pressures people, especially women in the Arab region. I mean,
Yeah.
even when you get married, don't think it stops there. You get married.
There's still pressure after you get married, like, oh, salkun سنة متجوزين, when are the kids coming? And it's like, مش إنه, it's funny because it's never like, do you want kids? Like, how the hell do you even know that I want children?
Yeah.
Like, it's always like, when? When are the kids coming?
Yeah.
طيب, okay, come have a conversation with me. بركي أنا إنه you don't know people's circumstances. You don't know if I've been
Absolutely.
trying,
Absolutely.
or if me and my husband made a decision that, you know what, this is just not the path that we want to take, which a lot of people have made that decision, and it's not wrong. Like, this is your life at the end of the day. Whatever you want to do with it, however you want to go, that's on you and your partner to decide,
Absolutely.
I do have one thing to say though. I think sometimes people get offended with these questions. And I don't
Which
know, but
question?
this any question, like, when are you gonna get married? Or
Oh,
like,
yeah.
people like prying like that, or it's like, when are you having kids? Or you have your first, when is it time for baby number two, And it's like, some people get offended by it, but Anna, I've grown to understand that it's like, they're not trying to offend you. A lot of the times, especially in like our parents' generation, these are all really like conversation starters, ashway, for them.
Yeah.
Like, they don't come with ill intent with these questions. And I think our generation is very quick to like get offended by these questions. And I'm always like, I always try to just tell my friends, like, hey, they're not trying to offend you. Like, they're genuinely just like interested or just asking, يعني normally, like, so I feel like if
And
I
it
can,
comes out of love. It's not coming out of
yeah,
spite or out of pressure,
yeah,
or they don't look at it that way, right? A lot of people,
most,
and I want to say we're talking about the older generation, but a lot of this also comes from our own generation, from our own
yeah,
friends
yeah,
as well, right?
yeah, yeah,
So a lot of our friends that have kids have already started their families. They're so blessed to have their babies all around them and whatnot. And they look at you and they go, طب يلا امتى حيكون دورك؟ امتى حتجيبي baby to play with, baby whatever, you know what I mean.
most,
at the same time انت بتكون عم بتفكري انه okay, كيف بدي اعرف اذا انا I want to have a baby now or if it's because of the pressure all around me. And it's not just about babies, it's about getting married too, right?
yeah.
Sometimes you find yourself in the wrong relationship at the right time in your life, right? Or with the wrong person at the right
That's
time in
a
your
very,
life.
very great way to put it.
Yeah, and then a lot of the if you're in that period of your life, then you're kind of, pardon my French, but screwed because you start looking at it differently and you start accepting the red flags that you see or that person puts out, or maybe you start kind of بتصيري انت عم تحلليهم براسك بطريقة تضطريه على حالك or تضطريه على حاله الشخص. And that's not okay, right? And this comes from looking at others around you and not having a lot of introspection when it comes to these things. And I'm really big on listening to my gut and going with your instinct. I'm very big on that. And I think it's all about waiting for the right person. It might be the right time for you now, but if it's the wrong person, then who cares? Wait for the right person. Because if it feels, and we've always said this, if it feels good with the wrong person, imagine how great it's going to feel with the right person.
100%. And it's funny that you say that, because literally so many people, obviously we're both married, and so many people, when I see them, like college friends, like just this past summer, I saw a college friend that I hadn't seen in a while, and she was like, أول ما شفتني, she's like, عندك عريس? Do you have someone here that you can introduce me to? Or like, what's going on? Like, I'm freaking out. I'm almost 30. I don't know what to do. And I was like, don't do anything. No, marriage is hard and it's a lot of work. It's a lot of compromise. And if you're not doing it with the right person, and I always say this, me and my husband both, we always say this, if you're not marrying the right person, it's not worth getting married just to take a box. I'm married. No one, like, why is that even a box that you need to tick? You know what I mean?
Because
And
of
me and
society. Again, because
of
of
society.
society,
Exactly.
right?
Exactly. But that's why, like, you always have to be very self-aware, and you always
Yeah.
have to be in tune with your gut and with your intuition, and really understand, like, am I doing this for the right reasons?
Absolutely.
Am I doing this because this is genuinely someone I can navigate life with, I can truly call a partner, I can go through conflict with? Um, or is this someone that it's just like you said, wrong
Convenience.
person, right time, it's convenient. You know, I've spent 3 years of my time with this guy. Is there any way, is this now something that I should just let go of?
Yeah.
Yes,
And
the
I
answer
actually
is
have
yes.
so much respect for people who are like 10 years into a relationship and they go, actually, you know what? I've grown as a person. This person no longer fits with who I am as a human being and what I want to achieve in my life.
No.
I'm gonna make the decision to khalas, break it off because
Yeah,
I know who I am as a person and what I want. And I have
yeah,
so much respect for those people because I know, and you know, that society and everybody around them is going to be questioning them. They're going to want to be involved in the thought process. And
yeah.
people are curious. It's really not about them putting pressure on you. I don't think they think they're putting
Or having
pressure.
bad intentions.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's not ill intention. It's just their curiosity gets the best of them, and it happens to all of us.
All
It
of
happens to me sometimes too when I'm talking to some friends.
Yeah.
Um, and I think society and pressures in society in this day and age goes both ways. It's not the older generation influencing or putting society on the younger generation. It's now also the younger generation questioning the traditions of the older generation, and they're
Yeah.
putting pressure on them to start accepting things that they would have never accepted in the past.
100%.
So,
And I think I'm so obsessed with the new generation and the fact that they do this.
yeah.
I feel like I definitely challenged my mom a lot on a lot of things and my dad on a lot of things. I took an untraditional path in a lot of different choices that I made in my life. Obviously, talking through them with my parents was hard for me to like say like, okay, this is what we decided we want to do and this is what's going to work for us. But and we're lucky, Kamena, because not everyone has parents who are understanding and who are even willing to give you the choice, you know. So
Absolutely.
we're blessed in that sense. Alhamdulillah, يعني, بس إنه it's always important that I'm reading like this audiobook now, reading an audiobook, listening to this audiobook now, that says exactly that you need to challenge. You should never take things at surface level and just believe them and just say, this is what people have done, this is what we need to do. لا
Mhm.
ما الله عطاك عقل تتفكر وتشغله. And if it's not going to work for you, if this truth isn't working for you, challenge it and talk through it with your family. You're going to be so surprised at how much more open they will be to discussion than you ever assumed, you know.
Yeah.
I think that's something that I learned, like with our journey moving here and all of these things. Like you never know until you have the conversation.
But it's
So
also about the way that you approach things. So I think that is extremely important. And then I think when you're having a conversation, when you're having a discussion about so many different topics that you can feel a lot of pressure from society or from people around you from, or about or over, it just has to be open dialogue. You have to be respectful of their thoughts, their emotions, and the way that they feel about a specific topic so that
Yeah.
you can get that same respect in return and you can have an adult conversation about it. Because a lot of the
Yeah.
times the adults or your parents or grandparents or aunts, uncles, whatever, they feel like you're still a kid, regardless of which stage you are in your life. So I
Yeah.
think it's very important to always know or be aware of the fact that everyone is going through this life for the first time. We're all learning as we go. Our
Yeah.
experiences are
Love
completely
that.
different, but we're all going at it for the first time. So,
Yeah, and we're all learning as we go, and we're all trying to navigate this thing that we call life, and it's true for everyone. And I think when that reel like blew up on Instagram of like, remember this is your mom's first time
yeah.
living like you, I like cried because عن جد انه it makes so much sense. Like, مين قال انه بس لانه هي اكبر منك صارت تفهم اكثر or صارت تعرف اكثر؟ اكيد
The experience that they
experience
have in life.
أكيد it makes sense بس ما her experience and her journey was completely different
Yeah.
from my experience and my journey. So أكيد أنت بتاخدي, you absorb and you listen to all of the advice they give because you know wisdom is power, but at the same time you have to make it make sense for yourself, you know, and your experience.
Yeah.
So أكيد they understand a lot of things better, but how is this relevant and how can I apply this knowledge or this wisdom to my life and to my experiences and what I'm going through right now?
Yeah. I think that's extremely true. And it's always taking a step back and looking at it from the other person's perspective as well, right? Then you'll be able to approach the matter in a different way. But I think also where you live, where you grew up, your culture makes a huge difference on the impact or the pressure that you get from society, from people all around you. Because I know, for example, in the States, getting married is completely different, or the pressure of getting married is completely different to what you get in the Middle East or in the Arab region as well, right?
It is, but I've noticed that, and obviously, like, people are gonna be like, this is obvious, but obviously, in like the southern states and like Central America, there's different expectations than other, like, you
Yeah.
know, than the West Coast or the East Coast. And they also, like, there all of these like influencers and stuff that I follow, for example, like, it's crazy. My friends, my intimate friends, it's crazy to me انه كلهم كتير صغار, like كلهم they're like 25 and have 3 kids, like that's intense.
But that's their
But
choice. It's not because of societal pressure.
yes and no, there is that societal pressure here. It's more acceptable in terms of you saying I don't want to get married, or I'm waiting, I don't want to get married before I'm 35 or
Yeah.
whatever, or I don't want children, but there's still to some degree أكيد مش مثل العرب يعني غير, but to some degree in certain states, in certain US cultures, because there's plenty of cultures within the US,
Course.
there's still that pressure, you know. It's interesting to see it play out in like Arabs versus like here and how it's depicted, but إنه, or even in cultures like Indian cultures, كلهم they come with so much pressure.
Yeah.
So it's funny, it's interesting to like see it through that lens and see the difference behind the she, but like there's a lot more similarities than you would think, is what I'm trying to say.
And I think the way that we portray it here is because society is smaller, so maybe
Yeah.
you feel it a bit more so than
Yeah.
elsewhere, right?
Yeah.
But I think no matter what we kind of talk about when it comes to the pressures of society and relationships, I think what's good is you start to think about these things. So even if you're not affected explicitly by
Yeah.
all of the societal pressures around you, you start thinking about these things. And the good thing about it is you start looking at what works for you and how that fits into your culture, or how does that respect your culture and the way that you want to be portrayed in society as a whole.
Yeah. Yeah. For me personally, like when I moved to the States, or now at least, like after, and I'm sure you get this too, like after we got married, even from like our own parents, in-laws, grandparents, we do still get that, like, okay, صار سنتين متجوزين, like when is it, when's the, and I think it's funny because like there's so much differences that go there. There's, first of all, there's so much pressure. There's a lot of elements that goes into starting a family, of course. And again, like everyone is coming from a place of love. Like, بس إنه بنفس الوقت they're not in the mindset of like انت Dubai, you have different things to consider, وانا بامريكا I have completely different things to consider when it comes to that. So مثل ما عم تقولي, I think your environment as well like makes a big difference
Absolutely.
as how these are like perceived and how they're coming along, how they're coming through. But yeah, it's something that never stops when you get married. So don't ever, marriage or otherwise, don't ever make a decision based on the pressure that society is putting on you. Always make sure to like fully take a deep look inside and make sure that this is a decision that you're making for yourself,
Yeah.
not for anyone else, not even for your partner, honestly.
No,
like
you need to, it needs to be anything that you do, anything that you decide to do in your life needs to be a decision that you take together, right? And it needs to be a decision that is based on where you're currently at in life. Obviously, we're not saying something that you don't know. And what you want in your future as well, because any decision that you take today will directly influence or directly affect your future as well.
But I think as well, like one thing we touched on a little bit earlier, but I'd like to like loop back to it, is just understanding that there's a lot of experiences as a couple that you should go through before you make any decisions to get married. And some of these things might not be fully okay with society, but it should still be something that you and your partner prioritize, and make sure that you go through those experiences before you make any decision.
I think, yeah, I think one of those things that our society is not okay with, or the Arab society, well, most of the people in the Arab society are not okay with, for example, is living together before you're married or traveling together alone before you're married. And I think at this day and age, if you're comfortable doing it, obviously never disrespecting your parents if they're not okay with it.
أكيد.
But if it's just something that you feel works best for you, traveling with your partner is a great experience. And it tells you a lot about a person. It tells you a lot about your own friends. So imagine how much it tells you about a person that you might end up marrying. Talk
100%.
to the people around you about this.
Yeah.
See where they think it works, where
Yeah.
you can find the common ground, right? Where you can compromise at least.
Yeah. And there's a lot of ways around it. Like I found, I have a lot of friends, for example, who, because first and foremost, the only people that really matter, like their opinion should really matter to you, should be your parents. So it's like, if you're able to have that conversation with your parents and they're fine with it, and they say, you know what, we trust you, you want to go travel, لأنه ما قصدي شي, بس إنه whatever you're doing abroad, you can do wherever you live. Like there's, it's not like, you're waiting to travel to do anything. But I think like, as long as you have that conversation with your parents, there's a lot of ways around that societal pressure of like, you don't need to be posting or bragging about like you two traveling together or whatever it is. بس على القليلة بتكونوا you're fulfilling that thing between you guys that you want to understand. How are you compatible with traveling? How do you function under different situations and different maybe times of pressure, or if you find conflict in travel, like whatever it is, how do you navigate those? And I think it's important to give yourself grace to do that and to discover that part with your partner.
Give yourself the space, regardless of what your experience is going to be, regardless of what you choose to do. Give yourself the space and give yourself the leeway to actually make sure it's not you falling for the pressure around you, but it's what you really want to do. And I think that's what I would say to close us off today. It's always about looking at what works best for you as a human being, what works best for you in the relationship that you want and your future self, and also what works best for everybody involved, you know? So where's that middle ground compromise? Where's that balance that you can find? And I think
Yeah.
with that, we would love to hear what are some societal pressures that you
Yeah.
felt before, things that you're still feeling, things that you feel will never change in the Arab culture.
Or some other, things, societal things other outside of marriage that you feel in different cultures as
Yeah.
well. If you're not an Arab, and how that's affected you, and how comfortable you feel to really sticking to your truth and like living that out regardless of what's happening around you with society and the pressures that are never ending.
Never ending.
Never. But yeah, so thank you for joining us today in discussing our latest topic. We're super excited to hear your thoughts. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.